Smart Trust regarding the Meijers store. As with all of our public hearings, we'll begin this with an introduction from our professional staff. We have our city planner here this evening, Ms. Andrews.
There are two items on the agenda tonight related to the Smart Family Property and Meyer project. Those are the agenda item we're on right now, the rezoning public hearing and action. And then under the Plan Commission report, there's a community plan review for this project and for review and for action. Tonight, we're discussing the second and third phase of a development process. We started in August discussing the comprehensive plan, and tonight we're discussing zoning and development plans. Each of these builds on the previous decision in that the zoning must be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the development plans must be comply with the zoning requirements. So each decision has to be consistent with the previous decision or action taken. For this item, the Smarts submitted an overall site plan for their entire 96 acres, which shows some commercial land, which is this red portion up near the corner, some conservancy areas shown in green, as well as some other future residential development. They also show a full extension of Tenny all the way down to the bypass. And this extension is something the Smart family and the city have been discussing with the DOT. And the DOT will likely allow that connection at an existing access point along the bypass. But tonight we're only discussing this commercial piece up on the corner, as it's outlined here in the red and on the Upland Conservancy area to the south of that red parcel. The Smart family and Meyer are requesting to rezone the property from T1 temporary, which is what it was assigned when it was annexed to the city, to B5 community business with a PUD or planned unit development overlay on the entire site and an upland conservancy overlay on the southeast portion of the property, which again is this portion of the property. In August, after a lengthy discussion, the council voted to amend the comprehensive plan for this property from residential to commercial. State statute requires that the zoning placed on properties must be consistent with the city's adopted comprehensive plan. Commercial zoning is the only appropriate zoning on this property under that state statute, since the amended comprehensive plan shows commercial for this property. The residential zoning is no longer an option for this property under the amended comprehensive plan. So tonight we have a request for B5 community business zoning, which is consistent with the amended comprehensive plan following the action taken by the council in August. B5 is also consistent with the other business zone properties in the area. The property in question is shown outlined in purple here. The other neighboring commercial properties are shown in red. You can see B5 on the south of Sunset and B5 PUD, which is the same zoning being requested for this property, is also on the north side of Sunset. This is where Kmart, Pick and Save, etc. are located. The balance of Sunset Drive looks like this. You have some B3 kind of in the middle in the older commercial areas, and then you have the shops at Fox Run, Zone B5 PUD, and or shops at Fox River, and then Fox Run further down in Sunset with a B5 PUD. B5 is the commercial zoning category the city frequently uses along arterial streets that have a commercial corridor. Also, the zoning category, this is the zoning category that the city uses for shopping centers, such as the Kmart property I just pointed out on the north side of Sunset Drive, as well as these two shopping centers, the shops at Fox River and Fox Run, as well as other shopping centers in the city, such as Westbrook, Silverdale Plaza, and Grandview Commons. The request also includes a planned unit development overlay. This is a common request for this type of commercial development and shopping centers that have multiple uses with shared facilities, such as shared parking, shared access, and shared stormwater management facilities. The PUD allows for flexibility with the design of the overall development and allows for some efficiencies, such as the shared access and internal circulation. The intent of a planned unit development overlay is outlined in our code, and it is to permit development that will be enhanced by coordinated area site planning, diversified location of structures and building types, and a mixing of compatible uses. PUD developments are intended to provide a safe and efficient system for pedestrian and vehicle provide attractive recreation and open spaces as part of the development, and enable an economic design of utilities and facilities. The flexibility and benefits are intended to be derived by both the developer and the community. There is a standard of review for PUD petitions in the zoning code, as well as specific findings that are required also by the zoning code for a PUD petition. The staff feels that the application meets the review standards, and the council will be able to reach findings that will meet the zoning code requirements after reviewing the plan. The request tonight also includes an upland conservancy overlay, which would be again in this green area on the south end of this parcel. That request is to, the purpose of that outlay is to preserve, or overlay is to preserve, protect, and enhance the delineated woodland area in that approximately 4.5 acres. This is a stand of mature woodland trees that after a tree survey was determined that we would like to preserve that area. In this case, when we're talking about a rezoning such as this, the plans are really tied to the zoning. So if there's no objection from the council, I'd like to also review them as part of the discussion of the zoning. The rezoning and the plan review are listed separately on the agenda, as I mentioned previously, and so the council should take separate actions on each. But for efficiency, I'd like to discuss them together because they are linked together as zoning really drives the design in some respects. So if there's no objection, I'd like to continue that here. This is the site plan for the proposed commercial development. It shows one access point on Sunset Drive, the location, which would be signalized, and 2 access points along Tenny, one opposite the existing Walgreens access point on Tenny, and then an additional access to the south to serve the backer store operations. Along Sunset Drive, there are 2 outlots, just over about 1 acre in size, shown on the northwest corner of this property. And then the minor also is showing a gas station operation along Sunset Drive. East of the gas station is one of 2 retention ponds. You can see the second pond down on the southwest corner of the property. And the staff is recommending that in the future, when we review buildings for these outlots, that as part of the PUD, the buildings be built along the roadway, similar to what we've done in the shops at Fox River, so that the parking is to the side or to the rear of those buildings. So as you look down Sunset Drive, you're seeing the architecture instead of the parking lots. Meyer provided 2 aerial photographs of what this might look. Put it into context. This is Sunset Drive and Tenny. You can see the development here. These are the 2 outlets that I was discussing. Their fuel station, retention ponds, and the store itself. This is a little bit further out. You can see the former Kmart property and high school in this area. The Meijers store sits towards the back of the property with parking between the store and the outlets. As you can see, there is an outdoor garden center on the west side of the store in this location, as well as a drive-through pharmacy also on the west side of the store. The east side of the store has a receiving bay down in the lower east side of the building, and also has a trash compactor and some fire and electrical equipment and storage. They show a main internal drive to access the property, again opposite the Walgreens access drive. This is the main internal driveway. They show a secondary service drive that brings the site and connects to that main internal driveway as well. The primary environmental corridor, or the upland conservancy area, is shown on these graphics in the dark green in the southeast corner of the property. There are some retaining walls shown on the site, and as I think everybody's aware, the site currently is by Large Hill as it approaches Sunset, and then it drops off or tapers off as going south on Tenny. And there's another view of it. But to allow for roads and building paths, the site will have to be regraded. This is the existing topo lines. You can see the hill really, the highest point of the hill is at this point, and this is where the internal driveway is going to access Tenny. So that area of the site will be lowered. And then there's a retaining wall shown as you enter the site. It's about 3 feet tall. It goes just about there to pick up some of that grade as part of the grading plan. There are also 4 retaining walls in the southeast corner of the property. The reason for those retaining walls is to stay out of that primary environmental corridor, so there's grading going on and the trees in that area can be saved. And those 4 walls are terraced and they're about 6.5 to 7 feet high. Overall, the site coverage for the Meijer and the gas station is about 53%, so this means that 47% of the property is left in green space at this time. The Meijer building is 192,940 square feet, and the gas station is 2,509 square feet. When we were reviewing these preliminary plans, we also were reviewing a traffic impact study, which was completed for the city by the city's consultant. And that study was reviewed by the city staff traffic engineer, Mike Rolke. And one of the results of that traffic study showed that Sunset Drive in this location should be 2 lanes in each direction, as well as there should be some lengthening of turn lanes along the south side of Tenny, and that this intersection should be signalized. Mike is also present here tonight, so he can provide you more details about road improvements that are proposed as part of this development and the study itself, if there are specific questions related to that. This is specifically the gas station portion of the development. You can see that it shows a number of parking stalls, and those parking stalls do meet the zoning code requirements. When we look at the larger store, there are 688 spaces included in the main store area. This is less than the zoning code requires. However, we have found over the past years that these types of large footprint stores do not meet the number of stalls called for in the zoning code. The number shown is consistent with what we have seen with other large retailers such as Walmart, Woodman's, and Target. So these numbers are very consistent with what we've developed in the past. The Plan Commission can and did approve this type of parking reduction with their plan review. Taking a look at the landscape, through the many Plan Commission discussions, Meijer and the Smart family did hear the concerns of the neighbors, specifically on Larchmont, which is the first street to the north of Sunset. And they did approach the city to see if additional plantings could be done in this right-of-way between those homes and this development to provide additional screening, and those plantings would be at the expense of Meijer and the Smart family. Like I mentioned, this is quite a large right-of-way with an average of 60 feet of green space on each side of the road between the curb and the lot lines. So there's plenty of room there for additional plantings. On the north side of the street, there's already some dense vegetation in some areas, and they've represented that kind of with these green blobs, with the circles being more specifically what they would propose to add. The city forester discussed this with the Meijer and the Smart family and agreed that they could pay for additional tree plantings on both the north and the south sides of the right-of-way, and in the new medians that are proposed along Sunset Drive. You can kind of see these shown in pink to help screen the neighbors. The details of the species and numbers and locations are still being discussed with the forester, but he has provided a list of preferred species, and the design will be finalized if this comes back for final approval. And Keith Trace is here today with the forester to answer any specific questions as it relates to the plantings in these right-of-way areas, both on the south and in the north of Sunset Drive. Here are some pictures of the existing conditions. All of these pictures are basically looking north towards the residential homes as you're on Sunset Drive. So just to give you an idea of some of the existing vegetation, you can see there's some holes in that existing vegetation, and that's what they would be proposing to add plantings in those areas. This is a simulation from the backyard of a property on Larchmont that has one of those kind of breaks in the vegetation. So you can see from their yard what they would see as far as the Meijers store now, and after adding that proposed additional landscaping on that side of the right-of-way up against those property lines. Meyer also provided some sight lines. This is, again, Larchmont and a property on Larchmont looking south towards the gas station and beyond. And this yellow line shows, this yellow line shows that, that view from as if you were standing at the back side of that house, looking out across the street towards the gas station. This is the gas station. This is the line of vegetation on the north side of Sunset Drive. And the green line on this shows the existing grade and then how that grade would be flattened out for this development. This is another view directly across the street looking up the entry drive into the development. So again, standing outside the back of house on Larchmont, looking towards the development through the line of vegetation across Sunset up into the driveway. There's also a landscape buffer along the east side of the property. You can see it's fairly heavily planted. There are residential homes abutting this property on the east side. They provide a separation of both the pavement and then additional plantings, as well as a preservation area where there's a no grade area, so the existing vegetation along that east lot line will be retained, and then they'll supplement that as well. And they provided a sight line about how that would look as well. If you're standing out the backside of this house, looking straight towards the Meyer building, looking uphill through that existing vegetation, which will be retained, through the new vegetation towards the Meyer building, and what that angle would look like. Specifically, the gas station shows some trees and shrubs. Most of the shrubs are around the building. They show some along the parking lot. We would recommend some more heavy landscaping along this pavement area, along the parking lot area in that location, so that the headlights are more shielded from the neighbors. This is a landscape plan for the store itself. Shows a number of landscape islands in the parking field. Again, the staff and the planning commission recommended additional landscape islands in the parking field, as is required by our code. And then finally, this is the landscaping for the rear of the site. As you can see, they've got some heavy landscaping along Tenny Avenue as well for a buffer in the future. When the residential properties are developed to the west. This is the architecture of the store. The top is simply the whole facade, and the bottom is blow up. You can see that it's a mix of materials, including stone and brick, and it's got two different colors. The center is flanked by columns. There are two entrances with large window features, cart storage behind a stone wall, and this blue awning with some stone on the pillars, and then that blue is carried through as an accent feature across the entire front of the building. Here's another perspective of that. You can see the variation of the roof lines. This might be the perspective from that internal driveway area of what the building would look like. And this is looking from the opposite direction on that internal driveway. This is the west side of the store facing Tenny, where you have the garden center. The garden center has a decorative wrought iron fence on top of a brick wall, similar to what we have on Menards on Castle Road. And then we have the pharmacy drive-through, and you can see those materials and the columns carried around on that side. This is the rear of the building. All of those materials, as well as the architectural features of these columns, carry around to the rear of the building. And this is the east side with their loading docks, which has some concrete panels, and then it switches back over to all wood. And you can see the blue accent colors also carrying around there. The planning commission and the staff recommended perhaps some additional detail in this area of the building to bring up that facade a little bit. This is the front of the gas station as it faces Sunset Drive. You can see it's the same materials along with the blue awning theme. This adds in the gas canopy as it would be seen from Sunset Drive. You can see they've added the brick to the canopy supports, and the colors are consistent with the development. This is looking east if you were on Tenny, and the canopy extending back to the building. This is the back of the building as it faces the internal driveway. It looks a little plain, but there are a number of plantings that will be occurring behind that building. And this is the east side of the building. And there's also enclosure, which is all red. Again, there's this internal circulation for vehicles. There's also internal circulation provided for pedestrians. There's bike parking provided at this facility, and there's also a site for transit, a bus pickup on the site itself, located in this location. So they are providing for all of those shared internal circulation type issues. As we stated earlier, both the city and the developer should benefit from the community flexibility, and they are asking for flexibility in a couple things. The Plan Commission has a standard height for walls of 5 feet, so they're asking for some flexibility on that. That's not a zoning code requirement, it's a Plan Commission standard. And again, those retaining walls are on this corner of the site so that they don't have to grade into the area of the Upland Conservancy area. One of the other areas is the pavement on the gas station. Normally there'd be a 25-foot buffer yard added in this location, and which would bring the pavement back to this blue line. You can see they kind of come out into that buffer area so that they can have truck turning movements through the site. And the Plan Commission, after reviewing this, felt that that reduction in the buffer yard would be appropriate. They're still 90 feet from curb to asphalt, 230 feet from property line on the north of those residents to the asphalt, and a total right-of-way width here of 214 feet. So there's still plenty of green space here for planting. And again, they're going to put some additional plantings in this right-of-way area, which is something we don't typically see. And then we've asked for some additional plantings along the asphalt. So I think that those additional plantings will provide a screen from that asphalt. And then finally, a reduction in the number of parking stalls. Again, that's something that the Plan Commission reviewed and felt comfortable approving. The staff recommends that as part of the PUD, a public art installation be part of this development. That can range from something small, like the shops at Fox River did, to something like a large sculpture installation that you see at the Lowe's in Wauwatosa. And the staff will work with them on that public art installation and with the public art committee. A PUD agreement will also be required, and staff will work with Meijers to develop a draft agreement. There were some signs shown on this plan, and those would be reviewed for final plans. And finally, lighting is something that we asked for as far as details when we looked at final plans. We expect that they would come in with a lighting plan that meets both the zoning code and the Plan Commission standards for this type of a development. And that would be reviewed if this project came back for final approval. Just stepping back to the zoning, that's a conclusion of the review of the plan itself. Back on the zoning code has PUD standards for review, and the staff feels that all of those standards were met. There are 9 listed here very quickly. Those are that construction will begin within 9 months, that is consistent with, in all respects, with the purpose and the intent of the zoning section. It's in conformity with the master plan, and would not be contrary to the general welfare and economic prosperity of the community. As proposed development has adequate drainage and stormwater facilities. The proposed development will be accessible from public roads that are adequate to carry traffic expected to be generated by the development. That the development will not be an undue constraint or a burden imposed on public services and facilities. That streets and driveways will be adequate to serve the customers and meet minimum standards. Water and sewer will be provided to the development, and the use of the land surrounding the proposed development can be planned in coordination with the proposed development. And as I stated before, there are specific findings that the council must find to also approve a PUD petition. Those 4 findings are stated here. And those are that the proposed development will have adequate off-street parking and truck facilities. The development will be provided with adequate and will not impose undue burden on public services. Entrances and exits have been designated to prevent unnecessary interference with safe and efficient movement of traffic and will not create an adverse effect upon the general traffic pattern in the area. And the architectural design, landscaping, controlled lighting, and general site development will result in an attractive and harmonious service area compatible with and not adversely affecting property values of the surrounding properties. The Plan Commission and the staff both feel that these PUD findings have been met. In conclusion, the B5 zoning is appropriate along arterial streets and is consistent with the other commercial zoning found in the area. The B5 is also consistent with the amended comprehensive plan. The PUD allows for better site design and shared facilities such as stormwater access and circulation. And the Plan Commission recommends approval of the rezoning and these preliminary plans. Lastly, we did receive a petition filed opposing the rezoning from the neighboring properties which are highlighted in blue on this map. So because we've received that petition, the rezoning will require a 3/4 vote of those members present.